I'll read New Muties, issue 60, part 2 of Fall of a Mutie, because one of them does indeed fall in this. I didn't point out last time, great covers, Bethany Belieber, they combine together. I'll show them in the final part. Individually though, all of them, great covers. This is the best of the bunch, I reckon. Love this cover. This is a double-sized issue, so I will be trying to get through it a bit quicker. We have our bad guy, Moreau. We also have McNugget, the bird creature he created, and who the New Muties became friends with. Currently, they are all captured by Moreau, and our here, Mary Sue Moonchild. She uses her powers to summon forth an illusion of Moreau's greatest fear, his superior, the person who has funded all of Moreau's experiments, Kirk Cameron. We will come to him, but this is really good. Last issue, I mostly talked about Double B's art, but Louise Simon's, her writing is, especially in these 3 parts, really effective. Great art still, Moreau looks amazing, and the New Muties, they are still captives. They spend a lot of this issue captive, and we have plenty of crazy animal men. We do some stuff with Wolf's Girl and her Mutie power allowing her to transform into an animal, which fascinates Moreau and seems to turn him on. Some nice character stuff between the stars when they are imprisoned, especially with Cypher and Wolf's Girl. And we cut to Excellent Men House, where Mr. Magnets, Eclipse, and the annoying robot ponder where the other characters are. Mr. Magnets goes off to the bondage club, presumably because Emma Frosty's is there, and that is reason enough. Then we have Eclipse and the annoying robot trying to piece together where the others are. And something happens. These two rank near the bottom of New Muties characters I care about. But I found myself invested in this. I suddenly found myself engaged in a plot line with them. I liked seeing them think things aloud. And I thought about it and I realised it's not that these are the annoying or boring characters they have always appeared as to me, but instead, Louise Simons is among the only talented writers to ever write them. In fact, she is almost the only good writer for New Muties. Christopher Clairvoyant? Fuck no. That redneck who was writing Spider-Man, get fucked. Dan Andy? Even he was no good. The rest, like Volume 2 or Excellent Force, which had many of the same characters, They don't really count as new Muties. When it comes to new Muties, it is a case of Lewis Simons or bust. Although honestly, John Roger Moore on Excellent Force is almost fully new Muties. And actually, he did the other thing with Eclipse that I thought was finally interesting. I know it must be tiresome to hear me review Excellent Men comics and chide on Christopher Clairvoyant, and I know the other half of you are probably gonna keep doing it, but with New Muties and most Excellent Men, his impact and long-lasting stink are unavoidable. To get away from him and his egomania and his crackpot fanatics, this is a story I actually enjoyed the most I have ever enjoyed it on this read-through. I've always thought it was decent, but I really did appreciate it the most this time. Back on Paradise Island, Moreau is contacted by his benefactor, Kirk Cameron. And it is here where we get a lot of backstory on Moreau, how he came to be affiliated with Kirk Cameron and his lot. I praised the art. I praised the writing. Now let's praise the inking and colouring. This is some really moody stuff. And it is all executed even with a drooling caricature of a mad scientist. It doesn't look funny, it doesn't look like comedy. It's just very well done everything. Kirk Cameron is coming to Paradise Island because he learns that Moreau has the new Muties, and he has also suspected Moreau is pursuing research and experiments that are not what they want him to do. Kirk Cameron is a former child actor, current COVID-denying evangelist, who first appeared in Extra Factors issue 1. He was Wingman's friend and business manager, but he was also secretly an anti-Mutie bigot. And Wingman and Extra Factors didn't realise that until it was too late and Wingman was already fucked over. We then found out that Kirk Cameron was commander of the Proud Boys or something like that. And he tried to kidnap some Mutie children like Firefist. R.I.P. Firefist. That brings us to where we are now. This is his first appearance outside of Extra Factors. But it makes sense as both the books are written by Louis Simons. Here is a page of the issue. Nothing to say about it that I've not already said, but I wanted to let you see it. The new Muties, they are able to effect an escape from Moreau's animal men. And now it is a chance to see some Mutie on Manimal action. Not the kinky kind, no thanks, but some action. Little thing that I like is, throughout the story, Magic Girl, Anya Taylor-Joy, she has been very loyal to Mr. Magnets. There was a story where Mr. Magnets helped her recently, a Christopher Clairvoyant one. And I like that Louis Simons is having Magic Girl keep referring back to this and expecting Mr. Magnets to come and save them. She teleports back to excellent house and instead finds no one there. Nice subtle payoff to the Mr. Magnets thing. He turned out not to be reliable or a saviour. Take note, Christopher Clairvoyant fans. During this, Cypher has a little moment. He is able to deactivate a self-destruct sequence. Cypher often has troubles when it comes to implementing him into stories and into action scenes. His power isn't offensive or even defensive. His power is useful but totally unhelpful for a comic book superhero character. So let's talk Cypher. Cypher was created by Christopher Clairvoyant and first appeared in New Mutants issue 13. He was Elliot Pride's computer friend, and Christopher Clairvoyant has a disease where he will not let anyone be normal. So even though Cypher was introduced simply as Elliot Pride's computer friend, it turns out he is a Mutie, and his Mutie power is he is literally a computer friend. Well, that's one facet of it. He can decipher and understand any language. This includes computer code, alien languages, and as later writers will say, to try and make him able to participate in action, body language and combat patterns, which now makes him able to outfight everyone. Back when these came out, the character was divisive. On one hand, people would consider Cypher as the point of view character. He was the normal guy who they were relating to. Then we had the other side. People would write letters in telling them to kill him off because he is useless. Both Christopher Clairvoyant and Louise Simonson admitted that they had trouble trying to work out what to do with Cypher and how to keep him in the stories. Anyway, we have one of my favourite visual bits in this story. Well, two. I like the top panel as well, with the new Muties having beaten off the animal things. But then they go over to an elevator door and Kirk Cameron and the Proud Boys are on the other side. And before they even have a chance to react, they are all gunned down. It's comics though, so this mutilating bigot group were being surprisingly non-lethal and only riddled them with tranquilizer darts. Tranquilizer darts that seem to wear off in 3 minutes' time. Kirk Cameron is real sludge in this. We have Moreau, who is so effortlessly slime. Well, now we have Kirk Cameron as sludge. He orders his men to start slaughtering all of Moreau's animal men, and this is quite bleak stuff. And I think it's here where the art and the cartoony style is maybe holding the story back a bit. I feel some of the weight and darkness isn't that apparent with the art style. We do some Ewoks overthrown the Empire shite with McNugget and the other surviving animal men. That's fine. McNugget doesn't overwhelm the issue. He gets what little victories he deserves without hogging the story. The rest is new Muties versus bigots, and Eclipse and the annoying robot, they arrive in time to take part in the combat. The main thing that happens is Moreau, seemingly in love with Wolf's girl, decides that if he can't have her, then no one can. And he is about to shoot her when Cypher jumps to push her aside. And nobody notices amidst the battle, but Cypher is fatally wounded by the gunshots, and he quietly dies. There has been a lot of comic book deaths, a lot of really emotional ones. There's been plenty that flopped out there too. There's ones that are completely meaningless. R.I.P. Fire Fist. I am going to say something that I think is maybe going to sound controversial, or maybe, and I hope so, people agree with me. Regardless of the outcome, regardless of what is done with Cypher or his death after this, this is one of the most actually emotional deaths in comics. This is a kid that, while a portion of the fans think is useless, this is still a good-natured kid. He didn't do anything wrong. He never was nasty or a douche. He was a nice boy. He dies quietly in the middle of carnage. His dying words are about letting Wolf's girl down. He's a sweet boy, even if you think he is useless. I would hope this still affects you. It's played so... it's sad. I think Louis Simons and the rest of the crew execute... sorry, not a pun intended, I'll use a different word. I think they perform this segment wonderfully. Cypher's passing is not drowned out by background action. It isn't a thing that happens in between other things. It is a section of its own. I decided I would not talk about what happens with Cypher afterwards, because stuff like that completely devalues and diminishes this excellent work here. And I want to reiterate, I think this is one of the most devastating deaths in comics, to the point where I cannot think of one that is even close to this. Death of Captain Marbles, the real one, Marvel. That one has some good emotional impact, but not from the character himself dying, rather from its exploration of grief and people dealing with mortality. Emma Stone, I've never really felt much emotion for that, besides for Spider-Man. I love Spider-Man. I feel bad for him. I won't mention one, other than to say that the twat didn't even want her to die, and the best thing about the story was forced on him by Jimothy Shooter. I know there will be some that are even better than this. I'm not naive enough to declare this the all-time best, but it really should be considered in a discussion about it. He dies, and his death is what stops the heroes from feeling any sense of victory for liberating the animal people and stopping Kirk Cameron and Moreau from doing evil shit. This is something I mentioned before. McNugget is allowed a tiny bit here where he gets to beat Moreau. And I was going to say beat off Moreau, but it would cheapen things too much after Cyber's death. The heroes, Cyber's friends, realising he is dead is heartbreaking. Louise Simons and her treatment of Cyber's death is, hands down, the peak of her writing. She completely understands how to handle it and the response to it and the grieving over the next few issues. Louise Simons is a good writer, but when it comes to Cyber's death, she is a great writer. We have one last bit that I also really like. Anya Taylor-Joy, she is angry about Cyber, and so she wants to kill Moreau, but Wolf's Girl convinces her not to, and, well, she doesn't quite not kill him. She condemns him to the demon dimension to suffer for what he did to Cyber and for all his experiments. There's a page after that bit which makes Cannonballs look a bit daft because he makes a giant statement to a bunch of animal men who won't understand what he is saying. I consider this tremendous. remember Mrs. Merton and Malcolm? Fucking shite, weren't it? Hey, Mr. Arthur, do you want a Garibaldi? Oh, it's days like this I wish me husband weren't bedridden. This is better than Mrs. Merton and Malcolm. It's actually a lot better than it. This is a very, very good issue, if not great. 7 thumbs up.